Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Patrik Drobny with us today. Patrik is a founder and CEO at Bite Drink. He's all about beverage industry sustainability. He's in Copenhagen today, but him and I were talking about his time in Mexico, where he wanted to start also like his first beverage company in Guadalajara, most precisely. So, Pat, welcome to the pod. Tell us a bit more about yourself and about that time you were in Guadalajara.
All right. Hi, Charles, and thank you very much for inviting me and having me on the pod. Well, my name is Patrick. I'm from Slovakia, so I'm basically an immigrant in Denmark. And back in the day, I was an exchange student in Guadalajara, in Mexico. Well, this whole beverage idea started because of let's say, I don't know if it's generally accepted that the quality of ingredients or foods that are available to consumers in Mexico is kind of poor and is lacking some standard. And that's why, coming from Northern Europe, where the quality is very high, even though the selection is not as strong, I wanted to basically innovate. The course that we took was called entrepreneurship, and one of my classmates, their family owned a lot of different processing facilities and farms. So we went out to the farms. We went out to meet his father, actually, to figure out how to do the supply. We did, first few juices, and yeah, then I left Mexico. So, but this impression stuck with me, and I remained in the industry when I returned, finished my degree, and 3 months out of school in Denmark with my master's degree. The best thing I could think of is like when, if not now, when I'm still in my 20s. So I dove right into entrepreneurship, and within beverages, it was very close.
Very interesting. And yeah, why did you actually launch that company? Like, was it straight out of uni? You decided to launch something, or did you had a couple of jobs before that?
So I used to work as a student worker for my second part of master's degree at Novo Nordisk, the makers of Ozempic, now very popular drug and very well known. And basically, the internship ends, or the student job ends, internship ends. I finish my degree, do the exams, and then I start job hunting. But yeah, if anyone was ever on a job hunt, it doesn't happen from day to day. And in Denmark, it's not usual that you get offers right out of school. It's not really this American kind of style. I'm not saying that it's not happening. It's just it's not a majority of jobs or a certain pool of jobs that are allocated that way. And also the graduate programs, you start applying for those, then they start in autumn, and I finish in spring. So I had a lot of spare time. I was on unemployment benefits, as we very nice net here in Denmark, safety net, so called, if you are, let's say, not employed right away. So while I was on unemployment, then I started thinking what to do. And I used to do a lot of events. Used to organize the biggest tech event in Denmark called Tech Barbecue. Again, tech and barbecue was a meetup of tech entrepreneurs. Denmark does have a few unicorns under its belt, and they've done it in the previous meat packing district. So where all the meats and eyes and everything would come to the city on trains, and then it would be distributed. So that was like the location, and it was connected with food and tech. So that was kind of, and I was in charge of that, and I was in charge of recruiting startups globally to come and showcase. So with that package of events and having been involved in a lot of beverages, sourcing, and food for these events, then I'm like, okay, let's try to do this, because I already grew some network and started a company.
Why the drink industry itself? My first company was in the nootropic industry. It failed dramatically because it was hard to just like sell to consumers, right? That were changing opinion on a daily basis. Nowadays, I fully go B2B. Why did you pick that niche specifically?
I picked this niche specifically because, as I said, I had a lot of experience, and my family. I come from a village in Slovakia, 1,600 inhabitants, and both of my grandfathers were winemakers. So I was kind of always in the field with them in the garden, taking care of plants, taking care of maybe pigs and whatever was running around, goats and chickens. We had a lot of livestock, or small kind of poultry. And yeah, so I was let's say, somewhat of a farmer that got educated, and I saw an opportunity, and I had a lot of spare time while I was job hunting. So I started in beverages. That's it.
And
Not nothing really.
Yeah, your recipes that I see on the website, like why are you taking that to the next level? Because there's a lot of brands. I would guess a lot more quality than Mexico and Denmark, for example. So, what's special about Byte itself?
So that connects a lot to the name. So where to start? So we are a purely B2B company. So we only supply industry because as there was a good point you pointed out, that consumers change their behavior very often. But restaurants, bars, hotels, cafes, amusement parks, cruise ships, chains, so they do not change their behavior as often, and everything works on contracts and periods. So while you are on these contract periods, you basically have a secured supply, which is very beneficial for a startup that needs to be making money from the day one, at least in my case, when we were bootstrapping a lot. So, and how the products were developed actually in the same sense. So since I had a lot of network, I saw an opportunity. Then I used to claim that I had 6 friends in the industry, because the first 6 original products, actually all of our products are done in a collaboration from a tangible demand from the restaurants who receive demand from consumers, and then they translate this demand to suppliers. So these restaurants are great hubs for learning about trends and about what's going on. So the flavor combinations we have developed were actually something we kept hearing. So I wrote all of my friends, and then I chose the 6 ones that were my strongest connections, and I've then developed these drinks together with them for that restaurant. And the name Bite is because you do not bite food. You do not buy drinks, you buy the food. And the way how we used to sell it is that the restaurants we developed these drinks for were fine to or mid to fine dining and a Michelin. So those were the restaurants that we developed these products for initially, and we would choose a dish on that menu that navigate our development process. So when a group of people would make a booking, someone will not drink. Like there's at least one person who's not drinking for whatever reasons, and they need recommendations. They need to be treated well, because if you're paying $200 for a 7-course dinner, an additional $100 for pairing, it still kind of is to this day semi-difficult to cater to these alcohol-free needs. So we made these organic mixers with focus on that specific dish, and we would just choose one, because one was enough to create this turnover for us to pay the first salary, pay the first capital expenditures into equipment, etc. So this is how we went about it.
Love that. And each box is 5 liters, right? Is that like most boxes that you sell? And what do they retail for? What should I pay for that 5 liter?
So we only make bulk. We're only for professionals. We're only for B2B. And let me ask you this way: when a chef is having a steak on the menu, does he buy individually packaged steak? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, he buys half a cow, he portions it out, takes the meat he needs for that, takes the bones, make a stock or bone marrow, etc., etc. In drinks, you receive single serving mixers in bottles, so you basically pour it out, and the entire life cycle of that bottle is enormous. Like you need to make the glass, clean the glass, fill the glass. There's like 6-7 transportation cycles until it reaches the restaurant. And actual utility is about 3 to 5 seconds until you pour out the bottle in a drink. With us, you get this 5-liter box. There is between 125 to 166 portions or servings of a drink, depends on the ratio you're using. And you get to phase out all of that glass from the supply chain, which is fairly a unique point, because then we get to drop the price, because we package 166 drinks on the high end in 280 grams of packaging. That it's flat pack and it's fully recyclable. So
Right.
what do you need is a sparkling water on a tap to serve that. Now in Denmark, 95% of all the restaurants have sparkling water on tap and it comes from the system. Sparkling or even tap water here is perfectly fine, but there's companies now, maybe you've heard of a company called BWT. They also sponsor a Formula One team, global company. So they do all the filtrations, even no matter where you are. They make the water, even in far ends of the world, drinkable. So you can use the source that's already in there, and it's baked in your fixed cost as restaurant. So you basically pay for water supply to your water treatment company, and then you filter it out and through the filters that BWT provides, and you have a clean, sparkling water. We see that also in the United States right now being massively adapted. So the truth growth abroad is what fuels us. That's what kind of guide us with this adaptation of sparkling water. We are not pegging ourselves to it, because you can still find ways. For example, cocktails, in cocktail usage, you don't need the sparkling water per se when you make a drink that doesn't call for sparkling water. But if you want to serve our drinks as organic sodas, we are fully organic certified, also in US and also in Denmark, then you kind of need either regular water or sparkling water, which comes significantly cheaper than a bottled, already flavored mixer.
Right. Okay. So per box is like 100 euros or something like that.
It's in Denmark, we wholesale around 85 euros, and
Very
whatever that
good.
translates into US, that's what we translate. So your cost per serve is between 40 to 60% lower than if you are buying bottled drinks.
Oh yeah, because I mean I consume these mocktails right when I go to the restaurant, and some of them are like 10, 15 USD.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much of a no-brainer. You get into your money after like 10 drinks or something like that. And in Michelin restaurants, it must be 20, 25, 30 dollars or euros per drink. So I get the portrait here. Now you mentioned the organic ingredients, right? And you sell high end. Do you treat every box like a Michelin meal? You know, like how refined do you get? Like what? How do you get
Yeah.
the ingredients? How do you actually taste? Do you just kill the batch if it's not good? Tell me about that process.
So this was, we are existing now for about 8 years, right? So there's so many learnings, and every time we create a new badge, we learn something more. We learn something new, still to this day, about sourcing, about processing, etc. So where we would be manual before, everything is handmade. Everything here is handmade. Everything we produce is handmade. So every ingredient passes through hands, passes the quality checks of 4 people in our production who are from the industry or from food science line. So we hire from Copenhagen University from their food science degree. And that's the people who basically process it. My partner has a doctorate in biotechnology, and our production manager has a master of science in food science. And then we have 2 food science students. So everything is done as it was the first or the last batch or the mid batch. Everything is done with an absolute precision, from raw ingredient to a drink.
The tasting process, like how does it go? Because you mentioned like yeah, in Michelin restaurants everything matters, right? Like I'm not saying like this is your core clients, maybe like 5% or 3% of your client base, but how do you make sure that the drink is like to an epic level? And also when you enter these Michelin restaurants, do you, yeah, you go with a mocktail per a meal, right? So what's your plan when you get in there? Do you come up with 5 different drinks and then you're like, I studied your meal? And could you have AI do that? You know, like
Yeah.
what, ask an AI like what a drink would go with their specific menu, right? So that you have a laser focused plan when you enter to actually make the sell and get that new Michelin client.
So first of all, Michelin restaurants are not volume drivers; they're reference drivers. So when you look at let's say a pyramid, you have the reference drivers but low volume. Then you have the mid segment where you get a lot of recognition, a lot of references, but also you can live off of it because that's a lot of there's decent volume. And then you have the how would you say, the McDonald's, the large market, and there you don't get pat on the back. Oh, I supply McDonald's or I supply a massive chain, so that's not really driving references, unless you work in that segment of landing the Subway, landing the KFC, etc. But you don't generally start there with a company. That's where you go finish and earn the volume, right? So the Michelin restaurants are like 0.1% or even lower perhaps of our total revenue. But how would we go about it is that there's two things that happen. Number one, our products right now are fixed. It's a fixed portfolio. So what you can do is then create a drink that matches the food. So then we would act as consultants, as in the beginning when we started. It's where we get our name from. So we go back to the roots. Our entire team is very well educated. Everyone's from industry, even in the sales team, so they can offer this advice if needed. So we would sit with a bar manager. We would sit with a perhaps chef or sous chef or someone who has the time from the kitchen. They would introduce us to the dish. They would tell us what do we want to say with this dish, and then we would make an absolute banger of a drink that matches all the demands. And since we're a mixer, we can make a alcohol-free drink, but our mixer then is also an alcoholic drink. So take an example that alcohol-free spirits or the novelty spirits, they will only sell once on the menu if they're placed on the menu. But as a mixer, you get to earn the volume twice because you can go with alcoholic and alcohol-free in the same time. So that's where the volume is.
Right. And the organic ingredients, where are they from? How do you fetch these? How do you vet your suppliers?
It's really good question, actually. Right now, it was a unpleasant situation for us because after 8 years of operation, we first time ran a shortage of an ingredient from South Africa, which in the end we got, and everything was resumed, and the customers actually didn't feel that, but it posed a lot of stress in our production because this supply was just, the war in Yemen started, and you're like, I'm a small company, how can that influence me, right? I'm not a global player. But the ships, actually, the cargo ships, they were turned around, and based on the information we had, they had to sail around Africa the other way to get here. So some ships, they called to stay and wait it out. Some ships turned around and started sailing the other way. So instead of like a weekly time or whatever it takes, when it reaches the ports, we were waiting for like 2 months for this produce because they needed to figure this out. But other than that, we get produce from all over the world. Mainly we focus on Europe, and what we get from Denmark. So for example, thyme or basil, it can be very well grown in Denmark, also in organic quality, organic certified. So we get these two herbs, which, traditionally Italian, let's call it, like in their cuisine, you can find it very often. We can get them grown in Denmark and supply locally in Denmark, even at a higher cost. Or for example, in terms of the sugar, we would get a blend of Danish and Swedish organic beet sugar with cane sugar from Colombia. So there's two different ways how we source. We always want to have at least 2 to 3 suppliers for every ingredient we're sourcing, so we're preventing these situations. So even on the delay of 2 months, we had a second backup, so we actually got the goods. But the initial thought was, okay, these guys are out because we source it directly from the farm, and there's actually only one farm in the world that grows this ingredient organic certified. So then we needed to go through their supply chain. Okay, where do you actually sell it in the world? And can you tell us, please, because we need these ingredients. So then we called all of their customers, and a customer from UK was kind enough to send us a shipment of 20 kilos that would get us through one batch of 1,000 liters. So that was actually a fun story. But now we know, but there's just this only farm, so we cannot really switch this ingredient to anyone else.
Right.
That's kind of a pickle.
Right. And do you have expansion plans? How scalable is that business? Because liquids cost a lot, right? Lots of competition, I would say, in that niche as well. But I understand the value of your product, the branding, the sort of mode that you have in Denmark. So what's your plan on the scalability side of things?
Scalability side of things. Well, right now we just moved in actually 10 days ago to this facility that you now see. 10 days ago. Here we can produce actually 5 times more volume than we're producing right now. So we think about a future. Since we do not have a massive capex in bottling lines and bottles, and we do not outsource our production, we produce everything here. That means that we do not need to pay for large batches from, let's say, contract manufacturers or contract fillers at one time, because that's heavy on the cash flow. So we want to grow it organically. We want to build it brick by brick and growing steadily. Our goal is to be at about 100,000 cases in the next 4 years. That's where we want to hit. That's our milestone. It seems like it's what we've been doing. So if we continue on the trajectory as we are right now, that we have for the last 8 years. So we have been 8 years growing every year this way. So we have a pretty solid playbook. But you have a playbook until you get punched in the face, Mike Tyson, right? So we try to manage everything we can. Our team is really good in systems. So when you raise a lot of money and you hire a new team, you might not be very good at systems. But since we've been in this for such a, it's not a long time. 8 years is not a long time. But this team has been here for at least 4 years to working together day in, day out. So we developed these systems that basically make sure that finance is on point. The stock level management is on point. The sourcing, again, first time in 8 years, we had a small hiccup, but we've learned and we protected ourselves to go forward. And marketing team right now is getting ready to kick off a new strategy from Q3. So it is on the way. Right now we're in 8 countries and we want to go deep. We want to go deep in these 8 countries, grow it from the top, and then slowly grow to the volume. That's a strategy. Start from the top, build the references, acquire the volume.
Right. It's a cool business as well, right? When I compare it to, for example, myself, very much like B2B SaaS consulting and always being behind a computer, right? Like yours is way different. It's physical. It's tasting. It's working with restaurants, right? Which is it's very fun. Restaurants not super profitable like having a restaurant, right? But it's a fun industry. It's a lifestyle. So thanks for coming on today, Pat, and sharing value. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, they can put in our website, www.bytedrink.com, or they can find us on Instagram, ByteDrinkOfficial, or on LinkedIn, Byte Organic Mixers. And me personally is just Patrik Drobny. You put me in the Google, I guess something will come up. But that's my name. I'm proud of.
So that's Pat and Charles.